I stared at my laptop screen in complete disbelief. The desktop was empty. 3 years of my life gone. My 1,000-page fantasy novel, The Crimson Prophecy, had vanished without a trace. Behind me, Dad crossed his arms with satisfaction, while Mom nodded approvingly. Writers are just failed adults, Kendra. Dad announced like he was delivering some profound wisdom. Your sister sells makeup and makes real money. Mom's voice dripped with condescension as she added, Jessica bought a house at 25 while you're still living paycheck to paycheck. They had no clue that yesterday I'd received advance copies from Sterling Publishing, or that my book was already rolling off printing presses across the country. The cursor blinked mockingly on my completely wiped desktop. Every folder, every file, every trace of The Crimson Prophecy had been systematically erased. My hands trembled as I clicked through empty directories, searching for any remnant of 3 years' worth of dawn writing sessions and late-night editing marathons. Dad leaned against the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand, wearing that self-satisfied expression I'd grown to despise. We did you a favor, sweetheart. Sometimes tough love is what dreamers need to face reality. Tough love, my voice cracked. You destroyed my novel the morning of my publisher meeting. Mom appeared beside him, wiping her hands on a dish towel with theatrical concern. Honey, we couldn't watch you waste any more time on fantasy. Jessica's regional sales numbers for Luxe Glow Cosmetics increased 30% this quarter. She's making 6 figures while you're filing dental insurance claims. The comparison stung because it was calculated to hurt. Jessica had always been their success story. The daughter who'd dropped out of college sophomore year, but somehow landed on her feet. She'd started selling cosmetics from our childhood bedroom and now managed a team of 200 sales representatives across 3 states. You don't understand, I whispered, sinking into the chair where I'd spent countless mornings crafting dialogue and building magical worlds before heading to Dr. Morrison's dental practice. Sterling Publishing is expecting me at 10 tomorrow morning. Dad's laughter was sharp and dismissive. Sterling Publishing. Kendra, legitimate publishers don't work with unemployed dreamers living in studio apartments. Someone's pulling a con on you. The accusation hit like a slap. For 3 months, I'd been secretly corresponding with Patricia Holt, one of the industry's most respected editors. Our relationship had begun when I'd submitted the first 3 chapters through their open submission period. Patricia had personally called 2 weeks later, her voice warm with genuine enthusiasm as she'd requested the complete manuscript. Mom sat across from me at the kitchen table, her expression softening into what she probably considered maternal guidance. Sweetheart, we're worried about you. You're 28 years old, working part-time at a dental office, spending all your free time on stories about dragons and magic. When will you build a real career? This is my real career. The words exploded from me with 3 years of suppressed frustration. I've been working with Sterling Publishing since March. They've been editing my manuscript for months. Dad's eyebrows raised in mock surprise. Oh, really? Then where's your contract? Where's your advance check? Professional writers get paid, Kendra. My phone buzzed against the table. A text from Maya, my college roommate, who now worked as an IT specialist downtown. Coffee at 11. I want to hear about your big meeting tomorrow. Another buzz. This time from an unknown number that made my heart race. Hi, Kendra. This is Patricia Holt's assistant at Sterling Publishing. The advance reader copies arrived earlier than expected. Ms. Holt is excited to see your reaction during tomorrow's meeting. Congratulations on your beautiful book. Blood drained from my face as I stared at the message. The advance copies. Physical proof that my novel existed beyond the confines of my laptop. Proof that Sterling Publishing had already invested thousands of dollars in printing and marketing preparation. Dad noticed my expression change. What's wrong, another fake publisher trying to scam you? I held up my phone with shaking hands. The advance copies of my book arrived early. My book is already printed. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Mom's dish towel dropped to the floor. Dad's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. That's impossible, Mom whispered. But deep in my stomach, beneath the devastation of their betrayal, a flame of vindication began to burn. My parents had just revealed exactly what they thought of my dreams, my talent, and my 3 years of disciplined work. They'd shown their true colors by attempting to sabotage the most important day of my professional life. What they didn't know was that their sabotage had failed. My novel existed in the world independent of their approval or support. Sterling Publishing believed in the Crimson Prophecy enough to print advance copies and schedule marketing meetings. The real question was, what else had my parents done to undermine my success? Maya arrived within 20 minutes, her laptop bag slung across her shoulder and righteous anger burning in her dark eyes. She'd been my roommate at State University for 4 years, and she knew exactly how many sacrifices I'd made to finish my novel. "Show me the damage," she said, settling into the chair beside my desk. As Maya connected her diagnostic equipment to my laptop, I called Sterling Publishing's main number. The receptionist confirmed my 10 o'clock meeting with Patricia Holt and provided the Manhattan address I'd memorized weeks ago. Kendra. Maya's voice was grim as she studied her laptop screen. This wasn't accidental deletion. Someone used professional-grade wiping software. This was planned. Planned? My stomach dropped. What do you mean? See this military-level data destruction, the kind used by corporations disposing of sensitive information. Your parents didn't just hit delete and empty the trash. They researched how to make your files completely unrecoverable. The implications crashed over me like ice water. This hadn't been a spontaneous intervention or misguided tough love. My parents had deliberately researched methods to destroy my work permanently. Maya continued clicking through diagnostic screens. The software was installed 3 days ago. They've been planning this all week. But how did they even know about the publisher meeting? Maya's expression darkened further. When did you last back up your email? I use cloud storage for everything important, but... My voice trailed off as understanding dawned. My journal. I keep a digital journal where I write about my day. Show me your browser history before they wiped it. We spent the next hour reconstructing the evidence of my parents' betrayal. Maya's forensic software revealed deleted browser searches, how to delete files permanently, ways to help adult children face reality, intervention techniques for dreamers, and most damning of all, Sterling Publishing reputation. They'd known. They'd researched my publisher, confirmed Sterling's legitimacy, and decided to sabotage me anyway. There's more, Maya said, her voice careful. Check your phone's call log from the past week. I scrolled through recent calls and found what she'd discovered: 3 calls from Dad's number to Dr. Morrison's dental practice. Each call had lasted more than 10 minutes. Oh no. My hands began shaking again. What did he tell my boss? The drive to Dr. Morrison's office took 15 minutes through downtown traffic. I'd worked there for 18 months handling patient scheduling and insurance processing. Dr. Morrison had always been kind about my flexible schedule, understanding that I needed time for my writing. His dental practice occupied the ground floor of a converted Victorian house with bay windows overlooking the tree-lined street. I found him reviewing patient charts in his private office, his silver hair catching the afternoon light. Kendra, I wasn't expecting you today. Is everything all right? Dr. Morrison, did my father call you this week? His kind face shifted uncomfortably. He did. It was rather unusual. He seemed concerned about your mental health. What exactly did he say? Dr. Morrison set down his charts and leaned back in his chair. He claimed you'd been behaving erratically, spending work time writing stories instead of focusing on your responsibilities. He suggested you might benefit from professional help. Humiliation burned through me. Did you believe him? Of course not. You're one of our most reliable employees. You handle patient emergencies with grace, your insurance processing is meticulous, and you've never given me cause for concern. I assumed your father was struggling with some family issue. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by fresh anger. Dad hadn't just deleted my novel, he'd tried to destroy my employment and reputation. Dr. Morrison, I need to tell you something. Tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with Sterling Publishing about my novel. They're offering me a publishing contract. His face lit up with genuine pleasure. Kendra, that's wonderful. I've always suspected you had serious writing talent. Take whatever time you need for your meeting. Driving home, I called Maya with updates about Dad's sabotage attempts. It gets worse, she said. I've been analyzing your phone records. Someone's been monitoring your communications. Monitoring how? Your parents know your passwords right. They could have been reading your emails with Sterling Publishing for months. The truth crystallized with devastating clarity. My parents hadn't just spontaneously decided to delete my novel. They'd been tracking my progress with Sterling Publishing, reading my correspondence with Patricia Holt, and watching my dreams come true while planning to destroy them. But their surveillance had created a fatal flaw in their sabotage. They knew about my publisher meeting, but hadn't realized the book was already in production. Their timing had been perfectly wrong. My phone rang as I pulled into the driveway. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. Hey Kendra, Mom called me about what happened. Are you okay? You knew? My voice was barely controlled. You knew they were going to delete my novel. The pause lasted too long. I thought they were just going to talk to you about finding a more stable career path. Jessica, they destroyed 3 years of my work the night before my publisher meeting. Publisher meeting. Her voice sounded strange. What publisher meeting? Sterling Publishing. I'm signing a contract tomorrow. Another long pause, then Jessica's voice smaller now. I didn't know it had gone that far. I thought you were just writing stories. Just writing stories. The words came out sharper than I'd intended. This is my career, Jessica. This is my life's work. I'm sorry, she whispered. I really didn't think... But as I hung up, one question echoed in my mind. Exactly how much had my sister known about our parents' plan? The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my emotional state perfectly. I'd spent the night reconstructing my presentation notes from memory and printing backup copies of my correspondence with Sterling Publishing. Maya had recovered some fragments of deleted emails enough to prove the legitimacy of my publisher relationship. Dr. Morrison had insisted I take the entire day off for my meeting, even offering to let me use his office printer for any last-minute materials. His support felt like a warm refuge after my family's sabotage. Kendra, he said as I gathered my documents, I want you to know that your father's phone call actually convinced me you were ready for bigger things. Anyone who inspires that level of fear in their parents must be doing something extraordinary. The comment stayed with me during the train ride into Manhattan. Fear. Dr. Morrison was right. My parents weren't disappointed in my writing career. They were terrified of it. Sterling Publishing's offices occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in Midtown. The lobby gleamed with polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected the bustling energy of the publishing district. My hands trembled slightly as I announced myself to the receptionist. Patricia Holt is expecting you. The receptionist smiled. 30th floor corner office. The elevator ride felt eternal. I'd spoken with Patricia dozens of times over the phone, but meeting her in person would make everything real. No more secret conversations or hidden dreams. Today, I would officially become a published author. Patricia's assistant, a young man with bright red hair and an infectious smile, greeted me outside the elevator. You must be Kendra. I'm David. Patricia is so excited to finally meet you in person. He led me through a maze of cubicles and glass-walled offices. Everywhere I looked, people were engaged in the business of books. Editors reviewing manuscripts, designers creating covers, marketing teams planning campaigns. This was my world now. This was where I belonged. Patricia's office was everything I'd imagined and more. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of Central Park, while built-in bookshelves displayed hundreds of novels bearing the Sterling Publishing logo. Behind an enormous mahogany desk sat Patricia Holt herself, a woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled into an elegant bun and intelligent blue eyes that sparkled with warmth. Kendra. She stood and extended her hand. Finally, I feel like I know you so well from our conversations. Please sit down. Coffee, tea. As David brought coffee in delicate porcelain cups, Patricia opened a box on her desk. Inside were 5 advance copies of The Crimson Prophecy, their covers gleaming with holographic foil and raised lettering. "Your book," she said, simply sliding a copy across the desk. My hand shook as I touched the cover. My name appeared in elegant script below the title, Kendra Walsh. The back cover featured a glowing review quote from a best-selling fantasy author I'd been reading since high school. "We've already received advance praise from several major reviewers," Patricia continued. "Young adult librarians are calling it a powerful debut that perfectly captures the struggle between destiny and choice. The magic system you created is being compared to works by Sarah J. Maas and Victoria Aveyard." I could barely speak. "It's beautiful." The marketing department is thrilled. Sarah Chen, our head of marketing, wants to discuss a comprehensive launch campaign. We're thinking book tours, social media campaigns, maybe even some movie studio interest. My head spun. Movie studios, movie interest. Patricia's smile widened. "Kendra, The Crimson Prophecy has something special. The protagonist's journey from powerless teenager to confident young woman resonates with readers across age groups. We've already had preliminary inquiries from 3 production companies." A knock interrupted us. David appeared with 2 additional people, a woman in her 30s with short blonde hair and a tall man wearing a charcoal suit. "Kendra, meet Sarah Chen, our marketing director, and Marcus Thompson, our publicity coordinator. They're the team that's going to make you famous." Sarah sat across from me, her enthusiasm immediately apparent. "We've been developing your launch strategy for 6 weeks. Pre-orders are already exceeding expectations based on advance reader responses. We're planning a 12-city book tour, starting with a launch event at the Barnes & Noble in Union Square." Marcus opened his tablet and showed me a detailed timeline. "We're targeting key demographics through social media influencers, young adult book bloggers, and partnerships with high school libraries. Your story has authentic emotional depth that readers crave." Patricia leaned forward. "Kendra, we'd like to offer you a 3-book deal. Based on the market response to The Crimson Prophecy, we're prepared to offer a significant advance for the trilogy rights." The number she mentioned made my coffee cup rattle against its saucer. $50,000 for the first book with escalating advances for books 2 and 3 if sales met projections. "We believe this series could be our next major young adult franchise," Sarah added. "The themes of family betrayal and personal empowerment are exactly what readers want right now." Family betrayal. The words hit me like a physical blow, reminding me of yesterday's devastation. But sitting in this beautiful office surrounded by professionals who believed in my work, the pain transformed into something else, determination. "There's something I need to tell you," I said, my voice steadying. "Yesterday, my parents deleted my entire manuscript from my laptop. They don't believe writing is a legitimate career." Patricia's expression hardened. "They deleted your work the day before our meeting. They said writers are just failed adults. They wanted me to get a real job like my sister who sells cosmetics." Sarah and Marcus exchanged meaningful glances. Sarah spoke first. "Kendra, that kind of family opposition is unfortunately common among debut authors. Some of our most successful writers face similar sabotage from people who should have supported them." Marcus nodded. "We've seen parents hide acceptance letters, delete social media accounts, even refuse to attend book launches. It's heartbreaking, but it also creates powerful motivation." Patricia reached across her desk and touched my hand gently. "The most important thing to remember is that your talent doesn't require anyone else's permission. Your writing spoke to us before we knew anything about your personal circumstances." As if summoned by our conversation, David appeared in the doorway looking slightly flustered. "Patricia, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. Someone claiming to be Kendra's father is on the phone demanding to speak with you about fraudulent publishing practices." My stomach dropped to the floor. Even now, even here, Dad was trying to sabotage my success. Patricia's eyes flashed with anger. "Transfer him to me." "Patricia, don't—" I started, but she was already picking up the phone. "This is Patricia Holt. I understand you have concerns about your daughter's publishing contract." Her voice was ice-cold professional. "Sir, I need to inform you that Sterling Publishing has been in business for 47 years. We've published 12 Pulitzer Prize winners and countless bestsellers. Your daughter's novel is exceptional, and we're proud to represent her work." I couldn't hear Dad's response, but Patricia's face grew increasingly stern. "Sir, I'm going to stop you right there. Your daughter is 28 years old and doesn't require parental consent for business decisions. Furthermore, attempting to interfere with our contractual relationship could constitute harassment." The silence stretched for long moments before Patricia continued. "I suggest you reconsider your position regarding your daughter's career. The Crimson Prophecy is going to be published in 8 months, whether you support it or not. The only question is whether you'll be celebrating her success or explaining your absence." She hung up and turned back to me with an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry you had to witness that. Some people have difficulty accepting that their children have grown into independent adults." Sarah leaned forward. "This actually reinforces our marketing strategy. Your story will resonate with young readers who face similar family pressure to abandon their dreams." As we concluded the meeting with signed contracts and detailed timelines, I realized something profound had shifted. For 3 years, I'd written The Crimson Prophecy in secret, hiding my ambitions from family judgment. Now surrounded by publishing professionals who respected my work, I finally understood that their opinion was the only one that mattered. Walking out of Sterling Publishing with signed contracts in my bag and advance copies under my arm, I felt transformed. I was no longer Kendra the dreamer or Kendra the failed adult. I was Kendra Walsh, published author. But first, I had some family business to settle. Returning home that afternoon felt like stepping between 2 different worlds. On the train from Manhattan, I'd been Kendra Walsh, debut author with a 3-book deal and a marketing campaign. But walking up the front steps of my childhood home, I reverted to being the disappointing daughter who wasted time on fantasy stories. The house looked the same. White colonial with blue shutters, Mom's carefully tended flower beds lining the front walk. But everything felt different now that I understood the depth of my parents' betrayal. I found them exactly where I'd left them, Dad, in his recliner, reading the newspaper, Mom folding laundry at the kitchen table. They looked up when I entered, their expressions carefully neutral. "How did your meeting go?" Mom asked with forced lightness. I set my bag on the counter without responding and pulled out one of the advance copies of The Crimson Prophecy. The book landed on the table with a satisfying thud. Dad's newspaper crumpled as he stared at the cover. Mom's folding stopped mid-motion. "This is my novel," I said quietly. "The one you deleted yesterday morning. Sterling Publishing printed 5,000 advance copies for reviewers and industry professionals." Mom picked up the book with trembling hands, examining the cover art and flipping through pages of actual typeset text. Her face had gone completely white. "This can't be real," Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Anyone can print fake books." I pulled out my phone and opened Sterling Publishing's website, navigating to their upcoming releases page. The Crimson Prophecy appeared prominently in their spring catalog, complete with cover image and publication date. "It's listed right here," I said, turning the screen toward them. "Available for pre-order on Amazon, Barnes, and Noble independent bookstores nationwide. My author bio mentions that I live in New Jersey and work part-time at a dental practice while pursuing my writing career." Dad grabbed my phone, scrolling frantically through the website. His face cycled through disbelief, confusion, and growing realization. "The marketing director is planning a 12-city book tour," I continued. "They're discussing movie rights. 3 other publishers have inquired about foreign translation rights." Mom was still turning pages of the advance copy, reading random paragraphs of my carefully crafted prose. "These are your words," she whispered. "Your story." "Yes, the story I've been working on for 3 years while you told me to get a real job. The story you deleted to save me from myself." Dad set my phone down carefully. Kendra, we had no idea it had gone this far. You had no idea because you never listened. You never asked about my progress or showed any interest in my writing. You just assumed I was wasting time. The front door opened and Jessica's voice called from the entryway. Mom, Dad, I brought dinner from that Italian place you like. She appeared in the kitchen doorway carrying bags of takeout, her smile fading as she noticed the tension. Her gaze fell on the book in Mom's hands. Is that my published novel? I said. The one Mom and Dad deleted yesterday morning. Jessica's face went through the same progression of emotions I'd witnessed in my parents. She set the takeout bags on the counter and moved closer to examine the book. Sterling Publishing. She read aloud. That's a real publisher, like a major publisher. Yes, I said. I signed a 3-book contract today. $50,000 advance for the first book with escalating payments for the sequel and finale if sales projections are met. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic noise from the street. Dad was the first to speak. $50,000. Plus royalties if the book sells well, plus potential movie rights, plus foreign sales that have already begun. Jessica sank into a chair at the kitchen table. I make $35,000 a year managing my cosmetics team, she said quietly. Jessica. Mom started, but my sister held up her hand. No, Mom. Let me process this. Jessica looked at me with something I'd never seen in her eyes before: respect. You're going to make more money from your novel than I made last year selling makeup. Dad cleared his throat awkwardly. The advance is guaranteed. I pulled the signed contract from my bag and spread it across the table. 3 copies each bearing Patricia Holt's signature and the Sterling Publishing corporate seal. Guaranteed. My editor deposited half the advance into my bank account this afternoon. The other half gets paid when I deliver the completed manuscript for Book 2. Mom was crying now, tears falling onto the advance copy as she continued reading my words. Kendra, this is beautiful. The writing is really beautiful. Thank you, I said, though the praise felt hollow after yesterday's betrayal. Dad stood up abruptly and walked to the kitchen window, staring out at the backyard where I'd spent countless childhood hours creating stories with my dolls and action figures. I was wrong, he said without turning around. I was completely wrong about your writing. Yes, you were. He turned back to face me, his expression more serious than I'd seen since childhood. But more than that, I was wrong about how I handled this situation. Deleting your work was... He struggled for words. It was cruel, unforgivable. Jessica cleared her throat. There's something I need to tell you, Kendra. My stomach tightened. What? I knew they were planning to delete your novel. I thought it was just going to be a conversation about career planning, but Mom called me Tuesday night asking about computer software that could permanently erase files. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. You knew, and you didn't warn me. I thought... Jessica's voice broke slightly. I thought they were right. I thought you were wasting your talent on something impossible. My talent. The words came out harsher than intended. What would you know about my talent? Because I used to write too. The admission exploded from Jessica with years of suppressed emotion. I wrote short stories all through high school. I wanted to study creative writing in college. Mom looked genuinely shocked. You never told us that. Because you made it clear that writing wasn't a real career path. When Kendra started talking about her novel, you said the same things to her that you'd said to me. I thought you were protecting her from the disappointment I felt when I gave up writing. Dad moved back to the table, studying the contract with lawyer-like attention to detail. The publicity clause mentions media interviews and promotional events, starting with local newspapers and radio stations, building up to national coverage if the book performs well. National coverage, he repeated slowly. Television interviews. Potentially. Sarah Chen, the marketing director, mentioned morning shows and literary podcasts. For the first time since I'd known him, my father looked genuinely impressed by something I'd accomplished. Not proud exactly, but impressed in a way that suggested he was finally seeing me as an adult. Kendra. Mom said, closing the advance copy carefully, "Can you ever forgive us?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Forgiveness implied moving forward, but I wasn't sure our relationship could survive what I'd learned about their capacity for sabotage. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I need time to process what you did and why you did it." Jessica reached across the table and touched my hand. "I'm sorry. I'm truly deeply sorry I didn't warn you." "Are you sorry you agreed with them?" She considered the question seriously. "I'm sorry I let my own fears and failures influence how I saw your dreams. You did what I was too scared to do. You kept writing despite everyone telling you to quit." Dad returned to his chair, suddenly looking older than his 55 years. "What can we do to make this right?" "I don't know if you can make it right," I said, "but you can start by never ever undermining my career again. This is what I do. This is who I am. You can support it or ignore it, but you cannot sabotage it." Mom nodded emphatically. "Of course, absolutely. And I want you to understand that this success didn't happen overnight. I've been working toward this for 3 years, getting up at 5 in the morning to write before work, spending weekends editing instead of socializing, researching publishers and studying market trends. This wasn't a hobby or a phase. This was a business plan." Dad studied the contract again. "The timeline shows Book 2 is due in 18 months. I've already outlined the sequel. I know exactly where the story goes. Will you quit your job at the dental office? Dr. Morrison is letting me reduce my hours so I can write full-time while maintaining health insurance. He's been incredibly supportive." Jessica looked up sharply. "More supportive than your own family?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Much more supportive." The truth of that statement settled over the kitchen like a heavy blanket. For 3 years, my boss had shown more faith in my dreams than my own parents. But as I sat surrounded by advance copies of my novel and contracts bearing my signature, I realized something important. Their lack of support hadn't stopped me. If anything, it had made my success more meaningful because I'd achieved it despite their discouragement. "I'm proud of you," Mom said quietly. "I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now." Dad nodded agreement. "We both are." The words felt genuine, but they also felt too late. Pride offered after success required no courage or faith. I needed to know if they would have supported me through the struggles and rejections that typically preceded publication. "Thank you," I said. "But I need you to understand that this changes our relationship going forward. I'm not the struggling daughter who needs career advice anymore. I'm a professional author with a publisher, a marketing team, and a 3-book contract." "We understand," Dad said. "Do you? Because 4 hours ago you called my editor trying to interfere with my contract." His face reddened with embarrassment. "That was a mistake. I was trying to protect you from what I thought was a scam." "No, Dad. You were trying to control me because you couldn't accept that I'd succeeded without your approval." The kitchen fell silent again. Outside, the neighbor's dog barked at a passing delivery truck. Normal life continued while my family grappled with this fundamental shift in our dynamics. Jessica picked up one of the advance copies and studied my author photo on the back cover. "You look confident here. Happy." "I am confident and I am happy, despite everything you all did to discourage me." "We won't discourage you anymore," Mom promised. "I hope not," I said, "because this is just the beginning." 3 days later, I received a call that changed everything. Patricia Holt's voice bubbled with excitement as she delivered news that would transform my life completely. "Kendra, we just received an offer from Moonstone Entertainment. They want to option The Crimson Prophecy for film adaptation." My hand trembled as I gripped the phone. A movie option. A significant one. 6 figures for a 2-year development deal with escalating payments if they move to production. This is extraordinary for a debut novel that hasn't even been published yet. The number she mentioned made me sink onto my couch in disbelief. More money than I'd made in 3 years at the dental office. More money than Jessica had ever earned in her best sales year. "There's more," Patricia continued. "The foreign rights are selling faster than we anticipated. We've confirmed deals with publishers in England, Germany, France, and Australia. The international advance payments alone will exceed your domestic advance." I couldn't speak. In 3 days, my financial situation had transformed from barely surviving paycheck to genuine security for the first time in my adult life. "Kendra, are you there?" "I'm here. I'm just processing." Patricia's laughter was warm and understanding. "It's overwhelming, I know, but you deserve every bit of this success. Your writing has touched something universal in readers across cultures and age groups." After hanging up, I sat in my tiny studio apartment looking around at the secondhand furniture and discount store decorations that had comprised my world for the past 2 years. Everything was about to change. My phone rang again immediately. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. "Kendra, Mom and Dad want to have a family dinner tonight to celebrate your book properly. Will you come?" The invitation surprised me. Since our confrontation 3 days ago, we'd maintained polite but distant contact. I'd been processing my anger and disappointment while they'd apparently been planning some kind of reconciliation. "What kind of celebration?" "Mom's making your favorite pasta dish. Dad bought champagne. They want to toast your success and apologize properly for what they did." The gesture felt simultaneously too little and too late, but also like a potential beginning. "Okay, I'll be there at 6. "Great, and Kendra, I'm really proud of what you've accomplished. I know I should have said that sooner." Driving to my parents' house that evening, I felt a strange mixture of anticipation and wariness. 3 days ago, they'd tried to destroy my career. Tonight, they wanted to celebrate it. The whiplash of their changing attitudes left me emotionally exhausted. I found them in the kitchen working together with unusual coordination. Mom stirred sauce at the stove, while Dad arranged flowers in a centerpiece vase. Jessica set the table with the good china usually reserved for holidays. "Kendra." Mom's smile seemed genuine as she hugged me. "Thank you for coming." Dad approached more tentatively. "We have something for you." He handed me a wrapped package about the size of a book. Inside, I found a leather-bound journal with my name embossed in gold letters on the cover. "For your next novel," he said quietly. "We know you probably use a computer for writing, but we thought you might like something special for notes and ideas." The gift was thoughtful in a way that surprised me. "Thank you, it's beautiful." Jessica appeared beside us carrying a bottle of champagne. "This is the good stuff. Dad spent way too much money, but he said you deserve the best." We gathered around the kitchen table, and Dad poured champagne into delicate crystal flutes I remembered from childhood holidays. "To Kendra," he said, raising his glass, "for proving us wrong in the most spectacular way possible. To perseverance," Mom added, "and to following your dreams even when your family doesn't understand them." Jessica's addition was the most meaningful, to courage, for doing what I was too scared to try. We clinked glasses, and for a moment the kitchen felt warm and supportive in a way I hadn't experienced since childhood. But as dinner progressed, underlying tensions began to surface. "So when will you start making money from the book?" Dad asked, cutting his chicken with surgical precision. "I already have. Sterling deposited the first half of my advance this week." Mom perked up with interest. "How much was that?" The question felt invasive, but I decided transparency might help them understand the legitimacy of my career. $25,000. Dad's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Jessica's eyes widened. Mom set down her wine glass with a soft clink. $25,000, Dad repeated slowly, "for half the advance." "Yes, the other 25 comes when I deliver the second book." "And that's in addition to royalties?" Jessica asked. "Yes, plus I got some news today that changes everything even more significantly." I told them about the movie option and foreign sales, watching their expressions shift from surprise to amazement to something that looked uncomfortably like calculation. "A movie option," Mom breathed. Our daughter is going to have her book made into a movie. Maybe. Options don't guarantee production, but it's a strong indicator of commercial potential. Dad leaned back in his chair, studying me with new eyes. Kendra, we owe you more than an apology. We owe you a complete retraction of everything we said about writing being an impractical career choice. Thank you. But more than that, he continued, we owe you an explanation for why we reacted so negatively to your success. Mom and Jessica exchanged glances across the table. Clearly, they'd discussed this conversation beforehand. Your grandmother, Mom began hesitantly, was a published poet. Did you know that? Vaguely. I remember her showing me some of her books when I was little. She published 3 volumes of poetry with small presses. Beautiful work, but it never earned much money. After Grandpa died, she struggled financially. We watched her choose art over stability, and it frightened us. Dad nodded agreement. When you started talking about writing professionally, we saw history repeating itself. We were trying to protect you from the financial hardship your grandmother faced. But Grandma was happy, I said, remembering her bright eyes and infectious laughter. She loved her poetry even when it didn't pay well. She was, Mom admitted. She died happy, surrounded by her books and papers, but she also died with almost no savings and medical bills we had to cover. The explanation provided context for their behavior, but didn't excuse the cruelty of their sabotage methods. Jessica cleared her throat. There's something else, about my cosmetics business. What about it? It's failing. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Has been for months. The company restructured their commission system and my team's sales have dropped by 60%. I'm making less than minimum wage when you factor in the time I spend on recruiting and training. Mom reached over to squeeze Jessica's hand supportively. We were hoping you'd get a promotion at the dental office to help with household expenses. Household expenses. I looked around the table, understanding dawning slowly. Are you in financial trouble? Dad's silence answered the question more clearly than words. The house, Mom explained quietly, has a second mortgage. We took out a loan to help Jessica get started with Luxe Glow Cosmetics. The payments are more than we anticipated. How much more? About $800 a month more than our budget allows, Dad said. The pieces clicked together with devastating clarity. They hadn't just been dismissive of my writing career, they'd been counting on me getting a better job to help support them. My success as an author represented a loss of potential income for their household. You deleted my novel because you needed me to stay in my low-paying job, I said slowly. No, Mom protested. We deleted it because we thought you were pursuing an impossible dream that would leave you financially vulnerable. But you also needed me to keep working at the dental office to help with your bills. Dad's face reddened. We never asked you for money. You didn't need to ask. I've been contributing to groceries and utilities for the past year without being asked. Jessica looked mortified. I didn't know you were helping with bills. Because nobody talks honestly about money in this family. You all just assumed I was irresponsible and impractical, while I was actually subsidizing your lifestyle with my fake career income. The kitchen fell silent except for the tick of the wall clock and distant television noise from the living room. What happens now? Mom asked quietly. Now I move out and focus on my writing career full-time. Dr. Morrison offered to let me use his office space for my book tour preparations, and I can afford my own place with the advance money. You're leaving? Dad sounded genuinely surprised. I'm 28 years old with a successful career and enough money to live independently. Yes, I'm leaving. Jessica nodded slowly. That's probably for the best. You need space to write without family drama interfering. And you need to figure out how to manage your finances without counting on my subsidies. Dad opened his mouth to protest, but Mom placed her hand on his arm to stop him. You're right, she said. We've been treating you like a safety net instead of celebrating your independence and success. As I prepared to leave that evening, Jessica walked me to my car. For what it's worth, she said, I'm genuinely proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm ashamed of my part in trying to sabotage it. Thank you. Also, I've been thinking about getting back into writing. Maybe not professionally like you, but just for myself. Do you think that's stupid? I studied my sister's face in the dim porch light. For the first time in years, she looked vulnerable rather than competitive. I don't think it's stupid at all. Writing for yourself is actually the most important kind of writing. Even if I never publish anything, especially if you never publish anything, writing teaches you about yourself in ways that nothing else can. Jessica hugged me goodbye, and for the first time since childhood, the embrace felt genuine rather than obligatory. Driving home, I reflected on the evening's revelations. My parents' financial motivation for sabotaging my career hurt more than their simple disapproval would have, but understanding their desperation also helped explain their cruel methods. More importantly, I now knew exactly where I stood with my family. They could choose to support my career or ignore it, but they could no longer interfere with it. I had the financial independence and professional validation to write on my own terms. The real question was whether our relationships could survive this fundamental shift in family dynamics. 2 weeks later, I signed the lease on a one-bedroom apartment 15 minutes from downtown, complete with a spare room I could convert into a dedicated writing office. The space featured large windows, hardwood floors, and most importantly, absolute quiet during the morning hours when I did my best creative work. Moving day arrived on a crisp Saturday morning in late October. I'd hired professional movers for the furniture I'd accumulated during my years of apartment living. But the most important items, my books, my computer, and my writing notebooks, I packed and transported myself. Maya arrived early to help with the small items, bringing coffee and pastries from the bakery near her apartment. "This is it," she said, looking around the empty space. "Your official Independence Day. It feels surreal. 6 months ago, I was living paycheck to paycheck and hiding my writing from my family. Now I'm moving into my own place with money in the bank and a publishing contract." "And a movie option," Maya added with a grin. "Don't forget the movie option." The movie option had become real in ways I'd never imagined. Moonstone Entertainment had assigned a screenwriter to adapt my novel, and I'd been invited to consultation meetings about character development and plot modifications. The experience of seeing my fictional world translated into visual media was both thrilling and terrifying. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Morrison. "Good luck with your move. Your office space will be ready Monday whenever you want to start your book tour preparations." Dr. Morrison had become an unexpected mentor during my transition from part-time employee to full-time author. He'd offered to let me use his conference room for interviews and meetings, understanding that working from home wasn't always practical for professional appointments. As Maya and I unpacked boxes in the kitchen, I heard a car door slam outside. Through the window, I saw Jessica climbing out of her sedan, carrying a large potted plant. "Surprise," she called when I opened the door. "Housewarming gift." The plant was a beautiful fiddle leaf fig in an elegant ceramic planter. "Jessica, this is gorgeous, thank you." I figured every serious writer needs at least one impressive houseplant for their office. Maya appeared behind me, extending her hand to Jessica. "I'm Maya Kendra's college friend and computer rescue specialist." "Ah, you're the one who discovered Mom and Dad's sabotage software. Thank you for helping Kendra through that nightmare." As we carried boxes upstairs, Jessica filled me in on family developments since our confrontation dinner. Dad enrolled in financial counseling sessions. She said setting down a box of books in what would become my office. Turns out our money problems are worse than they admitted. The second mortgage payment increases again in January. How much worse? Bad enough that they're considering selling the house and moving to a smaller place. The news surprised me. My parents had lived in that house for 30 years, raising both Jessica and me within its walls. The idea of them downsizing felt like the end of an era. "What about your cosmetics business?" Jessica's expression darkened. "I'm officially done with LuxGlow. I spent 3 years building a team and barely broke even after expenses. Last month, I actually lost money after factoring in my time and travel costs." "I'm sorry, that must be frustrating after all your hard work." "It is, but it's also liberating. I've been pretending to be successful while struggling financially. At least now I can be honest about starting over. Maya looked up from unpacking books. What kind of work are you looking for? Actually, I applied for a position at the marketing firm downtown. They handle campaigns for small businesses and nonprofit organizations. It's not glamorous, but it's stable income with benefits. That sounds perfect, I said, meaning it. You'll be much happier doing legitimate marketing work than trying to recruit people into pyramid schemes. I hope so. And Kendra, I've been writing again. Just personal essays and short pieces, but it feels good to use that part of my brain again. That's wonderful. Do you want me to look at anything? Maybe someday. Right now I'm just rediscovering what I enjoy writing about. We spent the rest of the morning unpacking and arranging furniture. By afternoon, my new apartment was beginning to feel like home. The writing office looked particularly inviting with my computer set up at a desk by the window and my reference books organized on floating shelves. As Jessica prepared to leave, she handed me a manila envelope. This is from Mom and Dad. They wanted me to give it to you after you'd settled in. Inside, I found a handwritten letter from both parents along with a check for $5,000. The letter was longer than any communication I'd received from them since childhood. Dear Kendra, we know that money can't undo the damage we did by deleting your novel, but we want you to have this contribution toward your writing career. The check represents the money you've contributed to household expenses over the past year. We should never have accepted your help without acknowledging it, and we definitely shouldn't have accepted it while simultaneously criticizing your career choices. We're also including copies of your grandmother's poetry books. We saved them even though we told you they were lost. We thought you might like to have them now that you're pursuing publication professionally. There's also a letter she wrote to you when you were 10 years old predicting that you would become a published author someday. We kept it hidden because we were afraid it would encourage unrealistic dreams. We were wrong about everything. About writing as a career, about your talent, about what constitutes real success. We let our own fears and financial stress cloud our judgment about your achievements. You don't owe us forgiveness, but we want you to know that we're proud of the woman you've become despite our lack of support. We're also committed to changing how we handle family finances so that we never again put pressure on our children to subsidize our poor decisions. Love, Mom and Dad. Attached to the letter was a smaller envelope addressed to Kendra Walsh, future author, in my grandmother's distinctive handwriting. Inside was a note dated 15 years ago. My darling granddaughter. I know you're only 10 years old, but I can already see the storyteller's light in your eyes when you make up adventures for your toys. Someday, when you're grown up, you'll write beautiful books that help people understand themselves and their world better. Don't let anyone tell you that writing isn't important work. The world needs people who can create beauty with words. I predict that by the time you're 30, you'll be a published author with readers all over the world. Keep writing, sweetheart. Your stories matter. All my love, Grandma. I had to sit down as I read the letter, overwhelmed by the combination of vindication and loss. My grandmother had seen my potential when I was just a child, but my parents had hidden her encouragement for 18 years. Jessica noticed my emotional state and sat beside me on the couch. Are you okay? She knew, I whispered, holding up the letter. Grandma knew I'd become a published author when I was 10 years old. She always said you had magic in your hands when you wrote stories. Why didn't Mom and Dad show me this letter years ago? Because they were scared you'd end up financially struggling like Grandma did, scared you'd choose art over stability, scared you'd get hurt by rejection and failure. So they decided to hurt me first by hiding my grandmother's faith in my abilities. Jessica nodded sadly. They thought they were protecting you. They were wrong, but their intentions weren't malicious. I studied the check they'd included with the letter. $5,000 represented genuine sacrifice from people who were already financially stressed. They're trying to make amends, Jessica continued, not just for deleting your novel, but for years of discouragement and lack of support. I know, and I appreciate the gesture, but it doesn't erase the fact that they tried to sabotage the most important day of my professional life. No, it doesn't. but maybe it's a starting point for rebuilding your relationship with them. That evening, after Jessica had left and Maya had helped me finish organizing the apartment, I sat in my new writing office reading my grandmother's poetry books. Her work was lyrical and powerful, dealing with themes of motherhood loss and the courage required to create beauty in an indifferent world. One poem particularly resonated with my current situation. They will tell you that your dreams are too large, your voice too small, your words too strange to matter in the practical world. They will offer you smaller dreams, safer paths, more reasonable goals. Say no. Say no with your whole heart. Say no with your life's work. Say no by writing the truths they're afraid to hear. Reading her words, I felt a profound connection across time and family history. My grandmother had faced the same skepticism and discouragement I'd experienced. She'd chosen to keep writing anyway, creating a legacy of beautiful work that outlasted her financial struggles. I opened my laptop and began writing an email to my parents. Thank you for the letter, the check, and Grandma's books. I'm not ready to forgive the sabotage yet, but I appreciate your attempt to make amends. The money will go toward my writing office setup, and knowing that Grandma believed in my potential means more than you can imagine. I need you to understand that our relationship going forward depends on your ability to respect my career choices, even when you don't understand them. I'm willing to rebuild our family connection, but it has to be based on acceptance of who I am and what I do. I love you, but I won't tolerate any further interference with my professional life. Kendra. After sending the email, I pulled up the document file for my second novel and began writing. The story flowed easily, inspired by everything I'd learned about family dynamics, financial pressure, and the courage required to pursue dreams despite opposition. Outside my window, the neighborhood settled into evening quiet. Inside my apartment, in my own dedicated writing space, I worked on building the literary career that would define the rest of my life. For the first time since childhood, I felt truly free to write without fear, judgment, or sabotage. Whatever happened with my family relationships, my writing would continue. That was the most important victory of all. 6 months later, The Crimson Prophecy debuted at number 3 on the New York Times Young Adult bestseller list. The success exceeded even Sterling Publishing's optimistic projections, with first-week sales surpassing 15,000 copies across all formats. I learned about the bestseller placement during a phone interview with a young adult literature podcast, sitting in my writing office surrounded by advance copies of foreign editions. The host, an enthusiastic 20-something blogger named Rachel, delivered the news with barely contained excitement. Kendra, I don't know if you've seen today's Times yet, but The Crimson Prophecy debuted at number 3 on the young adult list. How does it feel to be a best-selling author? The words hit me like a physical force. Best-selling author. 3 words I dreamed about for years but never quite believed would apply to me. It feels surreal. I managed trying to keep my voice steady for the recording. 6 months ago, I was working part-time at a dental office and writing before dawn. Now I'm talking to you about being on the bestseller list. Your story resonates so powerfully with young readers who feel powerless in their own lives. The protagonist's journey from hidden abilities to full confidence mirrors what many teenagers experience. Was that intentional? Absolutely. I wanted to write about finding your voice when everyone around you insists you don't have anything important to say. After the interview, I sat in my office staring at the New York Times website, where my name appeared in elegant print next to the number 3. Below it was a brief description, a fantasy debut about a teenage girl who discovers magical powers while navigating family betrayal and self-discovery. Family betrayal. The phrase had appeared in almost every review of my book, suggesting that readers connected deeply with themes of parental disappointment and sibling rivalry. Without realizing it, I'd written a story that reflected my own experience of fighting for validation in an unsupportive family environment. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Holt. Congratulations, emergency meeting tomorrow at 10 to discuss the sequel timeline. Sales are so strong that marketing wants to accelerate publication of book 2. Another buzz this time from Maya. Saw the list you did at celebratory dinner tonight. Me. And then surprisingly, a text from Dad. Saw the New York Times list online. We're proud of you. Love, Mom and Dad. The message was brief, but represented a fundamental shift in our relationship. For 6 months, my parents and I had been slowly rebuilding trust through careful boundaries and honest communication. They'd attended 2 family therapy sessions, started financial counseling, and most importantly, stopped offering unsolicited career advice. Mom had even bought 5 copies of The Crimson Prophecy to give to her book club friends, bragging about her daughter, the published author, to anyone who would listen. The transformation wasn't complete, but it was genuine progress. Jessica had been my most enthusiastic supporter throughout the book launch process. She'd organized a reading at the local library, promoted my appearances on her social media accounts, and attended every event within driving distance. Her own writing had evolved from personal essays to a blog about recovering from multi-level marketing schemes, which had gained a significant following among people escaping similar situations. I'm living vicariously through your success, she'd told me during my launch week, but also learning that success means different things to different people. Your writing career validates something I'd given up on in myself. The movie option had progressed to active development, with Moonstone Entertainment hiring a director and beginning the casting process. I'd been invited to Los Angeles twice for script consultation meetings, an experience that felt like stepping into someone else's glamorous life. Dr. Morrison had become one of my biggest champions, displaying signed copies of my book in his office waiting room and recommending it to patients' teenage children. He'd also offered to let me use his conference room for future author events, understanding that my hometown success had created demand for local appearances. You've inspired several of my teenage patients to start writing their own stories, he'd told me during my last visit. That's a legacy beyond book sales. But the most meaningful validation had come from readers themselves. My author email account received dozens of messages each week from young people who saw themselves reflected in my protagonist's struggle for self-determination. Many shared stories of family opposition to their own creative dreams, finding hope in my character's eventual triumph. One letter particularly moved me from a 16-year-old girl in Ohio whose parents had forbidden her from pursuing art because it wasn't practical. Reading about how your character fought for her dreams even when her family didn't understand gave me courage to keep drawing. I showed my portfolio to my art teacher, and she helped me apply for a scholarship to art school. I found out yesterday that I was accepted with full tuition coverage. Thank you for writing a story that reminded me not to give up. These letters reminded me that writing wasn't just about personal success or financial independence. It was about creating connections between people who felt isolated in their struggles, offering hope to those who needed proof that dreams could survive opposition. The afternoon of the bestseller announcement, I drove to my parents' house for our monthly family dinner. The tradition had evolved from their attempt at reconciliation into genuine quality time together, though conversation still required careful navigation around sensitive topics. I found them in the kitchen preparing my grandmother's recipe for beef stew, a dish that had required digging through old recipe boxes they'd stored in the basement for years. "Congratulations!" Mom hugged me tightly, her pride obvious and unrestrained. "Number 3, can you believe it?" Dad appeared from the living room carrying a bottle of wine and wearing an expression I'd never seen before: unqualified admiration. "Your grandmother would be so proud," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She always said you had the gift." I know, I've been rereading her poetry books and I can see where my love of language came from. Jessica arrived while we were setting the table, carrying a bakery cake decorated with "Congratulations, best-selling author" in elegant script lettering. "I ordered this 3 weeks ago," she said with a grin. "I had complete faith you'd make the list." During dinner, they peppered me with questions about the movie development, foreign sales, and my timeline for completing the sequel. Their enthusiasm felt genuine rather than performative, suggesting they'd finally accepted that my writing career was both legitimate and permanent. The marketing team thinks book 2 could debut even higher on the list if we maintain momentum. I explained between bites of stew. They're planning a more extensive book tour and targeting international markets more aggressively. Dad leaned forward with interest. How many countries now? 18 confirmed with negotiations ongoing in 6 more. The German publisher wants to start with a 50,000 copy first printing. Mom shook her head in amazement. 50,000 copies in Germany alone. And the audiobook has been licensed to 3 different platforms, Jessica added, having become expert at tracking my professional updates, plus the graphic novel adaptation rights. As we finished dinner, Dad cleared his throat nervously. Kendra, there's something your mother and I want to discuss with you. My stomach tightened reflexively. Even after months of improved relationships, serious family conversations still triggered anxiety about potential conflict. We've decided to sell the house, Mom said gently. The mortgage situation isn't improving and we've realized we don't need all this space anymore. Where will you move? There's a nice townhouse community about 20 minutes from here. Smaller mortgage payments, lower maintenance costs, and a community center where your father can finally take those guitar lessons he's been talking about for 30 years. Dad smiled sheepishly. I figure if you can pursue your delayed dreams, I can pursue mine. The decision represented a major life change for them, but their attitudes seemed positive rather than defeated. Also, Mom continued, we wanted you to know that we've set up a college fund for future grandchildren. We learned our lesson about discouraging education and creative pursuits. Future grandchildren, I raised an eyebrow. Someday, Jessica interjected with a laugh. No pressure, but if either of us has kids who want to study art or writing or music, they'll have financial support instead of financial pressure to choose practical careers. After dinner, we sat in the living room looking through photo albums from my childhood. Many of the pictures showed me reading or writing often with a serious expression of concentration that my family had once found amusing, but now recognized as early evidence of my literary focus. Look at this one, Mom said, pointing to a picture of 8-year-old me sitting at the kitchen table with notebooks spread everywhere. You were writing a story about a girl who could talk to animals. I remember that story. It was terrible, but I was so proud of finishing 50 pages. Dad studied the photo with new eyes. You were already a writer then. We just didn't recognize what we were seeing. The signs were all there, Jessica agreed. I used to be jealous of how easily you wrote stories while I struggled with basic school essays. As the evening wound down, I realized how much our family dynamic had transformed over the past year. The anger and resentment that had dominated our relationships after the novel deletion had gradually been replaced by mutual respect and genuine affection. Thank you, I said as I prepared to leave. For what? Mom asked. For learning how to support my dreams even when you don't completely understand them. It means everything to have your encouragement now. Dad hugged me goodbye, something he hadn't done since childhood. We should have been encouraging you all along. We're sorry it took your success to teach us that lesson. Driving home, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me to this point. A year ago, I'd been a struggling writer hiding her ambitions from family disapproval. Tonight, I was a best-selling author with a supportive family and a thriving career. But the most important transformation wasn't external success. It was internal confidence. Regardless of sales numbers or critical reviews, I now knew with absolute certainty that writing was my calling and my contribution to the world. In my apartment that night, I opened my laptop and began working on the final chapters of my sequel. The story flowed easily enriched by everything I'd learned about forgiveness, family dynamics, and the courage required to pursue authentic self-expression. Outside my window, the city settled into peaceful evening quiet. Inside my writing office, surrounded by foreign editions of my debut novel and notes for future projects, I continued building the literary career that had transformed my life. As I wrote, I thought about all the young readers who would encounter my stories and hopefully find encouragement for their own dreams. Some would face family opposition, financial pressure, or simple disbelief in their abilities. My books would remind them that dreams can survive skepticism and that success is possible even when support systems fail. That was the true measure of my achievement, not the bestseller lists or movie options, but the knowledge that my words might help someone else find the courage to pursue their authentic path despite opposition. I paused in my writing to compose a final thought for my readers, the ones who had made this entire journey worthwhile. Have you ever faced family opposition to your dreams? Whether it's writing art music or any creative pursuit, remember that other people's fears about your potential don't define your actual abilities. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is continuing to believe in yourself when the people closest to you have given up on your dreams. Your voice matters. Your stories matter. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your own experiences overcoming family doubt or pursuing creative dreams despite opposition. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if the story moved. You subscribe for more inspiring true stories, and share this with anyone who needs encouragement to follow their authentic path. Thank you for joining me on this journey of family forgiveness and the power of never giving up on your dreams. May you find the courage to write your own success story no matter who believes in you or who doesn't. Your dreams are worth fighting for.